And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome aboard. I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska Marine Weather Outlook. It is Sunday, February 25th, 2024, and this outlook is for Monday and Tuesday in the week ahead. But before then, let's look at the sea ice as it stands this Sunday afternoon, and we do have some areas, Polinias up along areas of Norton Sound and north there of Nunavik Island. But the bigger weather story is the low pressure that's currently down north of the central Aleutians will be tracking eastward across the Pribilofs, and then a secondary low is going to develop in the vicinity and just east of Kodiak Island Monday into Monday night. So a front that's going to lift up into this region could initially bring some southwest winds up into Bristol Bay, temperatures up near freezing, but what happens is once we get the secondary low develop and then it moves out into the central Gulf Tuesday afternoon, northeast to north winds on the backside of the low will draw down a reinforcing shot of Arctic air, and this will cause the ice to begin to advance southward, especially in this upcoming week once we get there into Wednesday and Thursday. So keep that in mind, and winds will be more northeasterly across the Alaska Peninsula and the eastern Aleutians. Looking at the weather map late tonight, early on Monday morning, here's that low working its way eastward along this front, blowing snow along the southwest coast from Kuskokwim and Bristol Bays into the southwest interior. This area under winter weather advisory. We have winter weather advisories posted for when this front moves up along the eastern Kenai, western Prince William Sound, especially east end of Turnagain Arm, Turnagain Pass. These areas could pick up 6-12 inches of snow with this front as we go through Monday and Monday night. And then as that front works its way eastward across the Gulf, we have the secondary development Monday afternoon, and that low will then become the dominant low on Tuesday afternoon. With this frontal system pushing into the Panhandle, areas of the Panhandle will see moderate to heavy snowfall. There is a winter storm watch roughly from around Sitka and Petersburg southward through Klawak, Craig, and Ketchikan. These areas here could pick up 6 to 12 inches of snow with some strong gusty winds around 40 miles an hour. And this low will gradually, slowly weaken and sink southeastward as we go through the midweek period. But that's going to open the door for some very cold Arctic air that is up along the Arctic coast and up here in eastern Siberia. That is going to be moving across the state and bringing below to much below normal temperatures here, especially for the mid and late week period and to start out the beginning of March. So looking at winds for marine forecasts Monday, offshore north-northeast winds 20 to 25 knots. We could see waves within, say, Lynn Canal, 7-8 feet. Same thing down there toward Stevens Passage and Dixon Entrance. Offshore flow around 25 knots across much of the outer coastal areas in the nearshore waters with swells of 9 to generally 11 feet. But winds really pick up Tuesday with that frontal system because the low is sitting out here in the central Gulf, and as that front approaches, southeast winds anywhere from 20 to 35 knots. Gusty there at Lynn Canal, waves building to 4 or 5 feet, 10 feet down there toward Dixon Entrance. And then look for southeast to east gales of as high as 45 knots, especially off of Gustavus and southward there west of Sitka and Craig. And swells building anywhere from 17, 18 feet here along the southern coastal areas of the Panhandle to 27 feet there around Cape Suckling. Now across the northwestern Gulf, we have strongest winds on Monday near the entrance of Cook Inlet. Look for east-southeast gales of 35 to 40 knots, 10 to 12-foot swells. Generally easterly winds 30-35 knots, Hinchinbrook entrance and off the coastline of the Kenai. And then on Tuesday, with that low pressure down here toward the central Gulf, we expect east-northeast winds, 45 to 50 knot storm force winds outside of Hinchinbrook entrance. Inside Norton Sound, inside of Prince William Sound, 25 knot winds with waves there, 4 feet. And then lower Cook Inlet toward Kennedy entrance, we're looking at northwesterly gales, 35 to 40 knots with 10-foot swells. Now across the Kodiak Island on Monday, that low is going to be taking shape Monday afternoon in this area. But as we go out along the Alaska Peninsula, winds are going to be increasing from the southwest and pick up to 40-45 knot gales with storm to low-end hurricane force gust possible here south of False Pass and north of Cold Bay, with seas on the Pacific side building upwards of 10 to 16 feet and could be as high as 12 to 20 feet there to the west of Cold Bay and northeast of Dutch Harbor. And then for Tuesday, across the region in the wake of the low that's sitting out in the central Gulf, northwesterly gales 35-40 knots across much of the area. 9 to 12 foot waves there on the Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula and 12 to 17 foot swells on the Bering side. And looking at the eastern Aleutians on Monday, strongest winds across the eastern Aleutians, 40-45 knot gales with gusts to 60 knots there, especially around Dutch Harbor. And then further west, westerly winds fall off to around 30 knots, Atka westward. And swells there not quite as high. But come Tuesday, you can see the northwesterly winds from the eastern Aleutians up the Alaska Peninsula, 35 to 40 knot gales across the eastern Aleutians. Those will fall off to 25 to 30 knots there, Atka to Adak, and then turn more westerly, falling off 15 to 20 knots and becoming southwest there near and west of Kiska. Along the southwest coast, so into Bristol Bay, south-southwest winds ahead of that. Once that front lifts up into this area on Monday afternoon, low pressure, the initial low is going to weaken. It comes eastward from the Pribilofs, and that secondary low forms here around Kodiak Island and on the east side of Kodiak Island Monday afternoon and evening. Backside of the low, north-northeast winds picking up 25 to 30 knots. The ice is going to start to advance southward, especially by the time we get into Tuesday. And those winds will turn more northwesterly, especially once we get along the lower Yukon Delta. Through the Atollin Strait, you're going to have higher winds of 30 knots, as well as their northwest winds around 30 knots. Kuskokwim and Bristol Bays, again, good setup for the ice to begin to advance southward, plus much colder air. Could even see the ice grow a little bit. And then up there along the Bering Strait, winds will be north, 25 to 30 knots into the north side of St. Lawrence, falling off to 15 knots around Cape Lisburne, Point Hope. And then along the Arctic coast from Wainwright through Prudhoe Bay, west winds 10 to 15 knots, but easterly at Kaktovik. And then for Tuesday, we expect westerly winds 15 to 20 knots along the Arctic coast, Kaktovik to Utqiagvik. Generally northwest winds 25 knots from Cape Lisburne, Point Hope down through the Bering Strait. And then those winds will be a little more northerly once you pass south of the Bering Strait to the north side of St. Lawrence Island.